Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Monday, January 11th. I'm Gary Stevens. And second Monday of the month in this segment, we normally are joined by third-term state Republican Representative Mary Whiteford from Casco Township, just north of South Haven. She represents most of Allegan County in the State House. She's on the other end of our Zoom connection. Mary, good morning and welcome back to WHTC. Happy New Year.
Yeah, good morning, Gary. Good morning, everybody.
Glad you are with us. And if you have a question for Mary, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Obviously, current events leading the way with our discussion this morning. But before we get to that, I do want to bring up one news item on your end, and I want to make sure I have the information in front of me, and I do not have that in front of me, and I apologize, but it looks like some legislation has just been passed, or shall we say it's been signed into law from that you had crafted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had a bill, okay, take two steps back. As I talk to hospitals, talk to people who have been in mental health crises, community mental health organizations, so many times somebody will be in a crisis, and if they do seek help, they go to an emergency room. When in the emergency room, it could take hours or possibly days to get a final quote unquote disposition, a place for them to go to be able to resolve this. And during that time, they're not getting help because we know the ER nurses and doctors are crushed with all the major emergencies coming through. So I looked around the country and I realized, why don't we have freestanding crisis stabilization units? Kind of like an urgent care where you walk through the door, somebody takes care of you right away, and you can stay there for up to 72 hours because most people can be stabilized and find a healthcare professional for them within that time. So I worked on this. I worked on this with community mental health organizations, hospitals, people in the community, professionals, and we did craft this legislation and get it signed into law just last week. So I'm really happy about that. And my goal is, this sets up a licensing structure. It doesn't actually build the facilities, but it makes it so that Holland Hospital or Allegan County Community Mental Health or some other entity can establish this crisis unit. They can get the proper certification, make sure everything's followed by law, and start setting these up all over the state. I personally would like to see somebody within an hour of a crisis unit throughout our entire state so they get the help they need. And if they don't get this help, they could take their life, they could end up in jail, or they end up just getting worse and worse and causing self-destruction.
395-1450 if you have a question for State Representative Mary Whiteford. I'd love to be able to continue our discussions along those lines, but there are some current events that we need to address with you. First of all, although it does not involve the legislature, it involves the house that the legislature works in, and it looks like the Capitol Commission is probably going to vote to allow the banning of open carry weapons into the Capitol, while still allowing concealed weapons to be brought in. Your thoughts about that move in light of what happened last week, not only in the U.S. Capitol, but also with the bomb threat that came in on Thursday to the Capitol, which proved out to be unsubstantiated.
Yeah, and those things happen. I truly believe that what happened last year and people coming in with their huge guns was completely unacceptable. In our Constitution, you can have open carry. You get a special license to be concealed carry. I went and got that license. I think anybody who's really prudent and wants to do this right will go get their CPL. We're one of only 3 states in the nation that allows this. So I just want to make sure everybody feels safe. The Capitol Commission does meet at 1 o'clock today to make that final determination. The votes are all there to do that. And I completely support that. I don't want any of my colleagues to feel threatened. I don't want to feel threatened. I remember a couple of years ago, the whole gallery was, so we were surrounded, kind of like being in a fishbowl by people all the way around just yelling and chanting. I was worried that they were going to throw something down on us. We had sergeants who went and put us into a safe spot during that time. So I know what it feels like to feel threatened, and nobody should feel that way. I think we shouldn't allow people to go and yell and shout at us from up in the gallery either. That's the sergeant's job to keep us safe. But I think it's something that time has come. Outside of the Capitol, we have open carry. We're in throughout the state, except, there's certain zones that you're not supposed to do that. But it is a very serious thing that people are concerned about, and I support that.
Do we need almost to have bulletproof glass to protect the lawmakers from in this day and age? Because, from the gallery, you never know. Even if somebody has a concealed weapon, who knows?
You don't know. I could we could all sit around worrying about worst case scenarios, and we start to lose track of our own lives. And so, that's why I'm really working on these crisis bills and mental health, and making sure that people have the help that they need to help talk through it and walk through it and keep their sanity. I can't go through being worried every time I turn around that something's going to happen. I just have to put it in God's hands, right?
395-1450, 395-1450. In light of what happened last Wednesday at the U.S. Capitol, there's been criticism leveled at Republicans at all levels, saying that what happened was fueled to a certain extent, not only by the president, but all those who were against the election and basically rubber stamping the election. You were one of those saying, hey, let's make sure everything is on the straight, but you're catching some flack of it as well. Do you feel somewhat like, it's almost open season on Republicans now? No pun intended, to be honest with you on that.
No. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, so in my office, on my cell phone, on our phone there, emails, messages, I get up to 1,000 messages a day is what I was getting. People begging for certainty. We have a subpoena out there on the 12th, which is tomorrow. We're supposed to get the answers to those subpoenas. We've never had a real honest back check on the election. I heard anecdotally, there's a lot of people who filled out affidavits. I have friends who were there at the TCF Center. There were laws that were not followed. It's clearly not followed. And this is what people listen to. Republicans weren't allowed into the room. And we could go on and on, but I just want to make sure for the thousands of people that I represent who reached out to me that there was certainty and clarity that every legal vote counted. And that's what I've always asked for. So the letter that I went on last week was saying, hey, Vice President Pence, I have thousands of people I represent. They want to make sure that this was a legal election. Regardless of what happened, there was no way in the world that I was going to our Capitol, that I was going to the US Capitol to go and stand up for Trump or whatever. That's not in my wheelhouse. That was something I chose not to do. A lot of people did choose to do that. Violence erupted, but once again, it's a small percentage out of however many people showed up at the Capitol. I do have some people that I knew were out there. I'm like, you know what? I put on my personal Facebook page, guys, go where you're safe. Keep the police officers safe, get out of that area. And I personally don't know a single person who actually went over and broke laws. It was just a very, very unfortunate thing that happened last week. And once again, something happens and it paints everybody in a bad light. So I just tell my mom, I'm like, don't even watch TV. We've been saying that for the past year. I watch the weather. I try to stay on top of things because that's one of my roles to do. But it was a bad situation. And I think everybody needs to take a deep breath, move forward. We have a new president coming along, President Biden. We all need to stick together. We need to tone things down. We need to get things done. I got a lot done this past year. 3 major bills got signed into law that nobody thought I could do. We've got our Michigan Crisis and Access Line being implemented as we speak. We've got the crisis stabilization units being built that are going to be built. We also have the pediatric units for kids who are dealing with psychiatric issues to be in more of a home-like setting versus a state hospital or a lockdown status. So even though all this stuff is happening, I want to make sure the ship moves forward and make sure that people have access to the care that they need when they need it, and try to do my best, because that's what I've been working on all this time, outside of all the noise of the media.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Yes, I wonder if the restaurants are going to be open on what is it, the 16th or something like that?
The 15th is when the pause is supposed to end. And so, will the pause end, Mary?
Yeah, so I keep messaging the director of DHHS. I've had conversations with him because he's the one signing on the dotted line. He hasn't given me any message, any certainty. I was visiting my sister in Illinois over the weekend, drove through Indiana, the restaurants are open, went into Illinois, the restaurants are open, went up to Wisconsin because she lives near the border there, just because their friends had a restaurant, they were all open. And then I come back home and they're not. So I pray that they are. So many restaurant owners that I've spoken to, they have so many precautions set up. They've invested so much money to be able to serve their clientele safely. I pray that it's open, and I keep advocating for that. But I feel like sometimes I am a cook, but I'm not in the kitchen. So these decisions are being made behind closed doors without me involved. But I promise you, I'm advocating for us to be able to open safely, like I've always done since the beginning of this entire pandemic, almost a year ago.
Well, we have some friends in Florida, and it's all open there, and it's not been proven that anything comes from restaurants. I mean, you can go into Lowe's or Menards or grocery shopping, and it's just crazy. Restaurants do their best to keep us safe, and it just is ridiculous. Anyway, that's my comment.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Good morning, Ms. Whiteford. I just caught part of the conversation before. Did I misunderstand that open carry you don't want on the government property or by the Capitol, but concealed is all right?
The Capitol Commission is making that decision today. And the decision that they are voting on is to allow concealed carry, but not allow open carry. And that's what's going on right now.
Okay, no offense. I would rather know that somebody has a gun than having somebody conceal it and walk onto your property. You shouldn't allow any guns on government property.
So that is the decision being made. And I appreciate your perspective. There are so many perspectives out there among the people of my district, of our state. And this is the decision that's being made right now to at least defend some constitutional rights, which is concealed carry. And this decision will be, there will only be 2 states after this that allow open carry, and Michigan will not be one of them.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you. I do have to get to another call. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Yeah. Hi, Mary. Hey, here's a question for you. Given that the governor was a co-chair of the Biden campaign, and right now the left is shutting off media, shutting off access to millions of people, totally and completely trashing the Constitution. Free speech is now gone. Basically, this is Nazi Germany in 1938, and I guess Trump supporters are now Jewish people. What are you going to do to help ensure that the legislatures and the legislators in all of our states, not just Michigan, try to attempt to at least ensure that free speech survives all this?
That's a very, very complicated question. We do have a constitutional right to free speech, just like bearing guns and being able to fight, to go out and state your opinion about things. I would say our state's about 50-50. I mean, our country is 50-50 split, right? Our state's almost 50-50. Half of those people totally agree with what's going on, and half of the people don't. Now, in my district, it's more like 67% is Republican. And I'm a conservative. I think it's really important for me to defend our constitutional rights. It's very complicated. I'm going to do my best to advocate for that. I will make sure that we maintain some checks and balances at the state level. We do have a Democrat for a governor. We have a Republican in the House and Senate. Honestly, we can't do anything without having a conversation together. For the most part, besides these executive orders that have been happening, that's kind of outside the realm of the legislature in their mind or in many people's mind. It's still 50-50. But for me, I think it's really important to stick by my guns on my core beliefs. But during that time, besides all of this, I'm just going to do my best to keep the ship moving, with the mental health stuff, with $28 billion, which is under my purview of the Department of Health and Human Services budget, just to make sure people are being taken care of to the best of my ability with the funds that I have and being respectful to taxpayers. Like, very complicated question, and I'm doing my very best to advocate for that.
Mary, we got a statement from the governor's office along with the attorney general. They are highly commending bar and restaurant owners for their ongoing compliance with the state's emergency health orders. And in the statement, Governor Whitmer is quoted as saying, I will keep working around the clock on the small business owners' behalf. And that they are going to try to, it said, I've been working hard to secure crucial support for these businesses. Do you get the sense that, maybe the administration doing things that are supposed to, keep us safe, but, they're not really helping these small business owners?
Yeah, I disagree with, the fact that she thinks she's helping people. I think it's kind of backpedaling. I try to keep things calm and smooth and advocating for businesses, but I totally disagree with what she's been doing. I was at my sister's in Northern Illinois, and even if some of the restaurants and bars aren't following the rules completely, they're not getting fined the way that Michigan restaurants are being fined and through their liquor license. So these departments have been weaponized against a lot of our business owners, and now just focus more on the restaurants. Before it was other groups. And I think it's a shame. So I think what we need to do is everybody just has to keep clamoring for help. I'm begging Governor Whitmer. I actually, so one of my messages to the Director of Health and Human Services, Director Gordon, I actually texted him. I'm like, look, we're looking for a Christmas miracle. I have a state representative who owns restaurants, Tommy Brands. He sent me a message. He's like, I can't even represent myself as a restaurant owner. I have no choice. You're going to lose your license. Our health departments are trying to follow along and do their best to follow through with these orders. And they're being weaponized against our local restaurants. And everybody's put in a very awkward and difficult situation. People are so depressed. My restaurant owner friends are just so depressed. Some of them are able to do drive-through and they're able to survive. I know one drive-through restaurant outside of my district, they got to put a new roof on their building. They made so much money this year because they were perfectly poised to serve remotely, to do drive-through. But so many people just don't have that option. They don't have the space to have outdoor seating. So it's tough. It's really tough out there.
395-1450, 395-1450. There are some people saying apologize for the election stuff. I'm going to quote one we have gotten. Eric Almquist, Democrat, quote, I am calling for Representative Whiteford to publicly apologize for joining in on the conspiracy theories or relinquish her seat in the 101st legislature, end quote. What do you say to Eric Almquist?
So he was my opponent in this last election. Quiet guy, good guy. I don't know why he's on Twitter all the time trying to blast me. I go back to the fact that I represent thousands of people there that have reached out to me requesting certainty in the election. Everybody's asking for certainty in the election. Make sure that laws were followed. And we do know that some were not. So it's not a conspiracy theory, but let's have certainty. Our election and ethics committee is going to be very busy in the House of Representatives, going through these affidavits, finding out what's the truth that's going on there, where were laws broken, and make sure that there's certainty going forward in elections. Because like I said, we're 50-50. Half of our state thinks that this election wasn't done properly. The other half does. So I'm going to speak for the people who want to know for sure that there was election integrity and that this occurs moving forward.
One final thing, Mary Whiteford. The governor will have her State of the State address between now and the next time we chat in February. What would you like to see from the governor's State of the State to maybe try to move the state forward?
I would like to see her prioritizing mental health services, the health of our state, getting people back functioning, working. I'm so relieved that she's telling schools, you really need a goal of March 1st to be open. I've been fortunate that my first grade granddaughter and three-year-old preschool grandson were able to go to school in person. I think it's so important to get those kids into school. You know, there's 50,000 students who are not enrolled in public schools now. 10,000 are completely untracked. They have no idea where these children are. We have got to get these kids back to school. And I would love to see that as a major priority that really happens. And I want people to not be in fear. Words matter. I'm not going to say things to make my mom scared. I don't want to make everybody else scared. And I think our governor's been too negative, making people afraid. And so we have so many people who are vulnerable at home, don't have me as their daughter to try to help them keep their sanity. And they're the people we need to think about. They're forgotten people. So I want her to give a message of hope so that we all, no matter what walk of life that we're in, can feel hopeful about our future.
State Representative Mary Whiteford, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning on Talk of the Town on WHTC. Wish you and your family well over the next month. And if all goes well, let's do this again in the month of February. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. God bless everybody.
Thank you very much, Mary Whiteford, on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. CBS News is next on the hour.